A lot of stuff going on today on the show, guys. We appreciate y'all being here as we talk Alabama football. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, brought to you by the gang over at Pearl River Resort, taking care of us, taking care of you. A huge commitment date in the state of Alabama. One of these guys doing the same thing that Hollywood Williams did, moved up his year so that he could be eligible now. One of Alabama's best players, Ezekiel Crowell. Where's he going to go? We're going to talk about the commitment date. We're going to talk about how he'd look in the Alabama offense. Kalen DeBoer talked about Jalen Milroe rumors. Been a lot of people kind of talking bad about the new quarterback with the Seahawks and more. We're going to get into all that right here on Cover Crimson. So like, subscribe, thumbs up. Do all those things that are hard for Auburn fans, but for you Alabama fans, easy stuff. Also hit the bell. Let's go. All right, there he is, Clint Lamb. I'm Mick Gillispie, and it is great to see you guys on this Tuesday. What's up, man?
Not much, man. How you doing this morning?
I'm great. I'm fired up. I love talking football. I love recruiting. This is a guy in Ezekiel Crowell who is from Jackson, Alabama. He's a running back. He would have been the number one running back in next year's group, but he decided to move up and be in this year's group. He saw the success that our friend Ryan Williams had, a guy that I met this past weekend. And this is a guy that I feel like Alabama has to get. They need to get these in-state guys. This has been an area where Coach DeBoer and his staff have been scrutinized a little bit. So what can you tell us about the commitment date, and then how would he fit into this Alabama offense?
Well, I think the number one thing is he was, I think, scheduled to commit in December. And I think he's decided to move that up. We don't have an exact date yet. It's probably going to be coming at some point this summer. But it's important because I think he's nearing that end. And we know Steve Wiltfong with On 3, he's already submitted an expert prediction for Alabama to land the talented running back. And it would be an absolutely huge get. I mean, when you look at this guy and kind of what he brings to the table, really well-rounded running back. He's a dynamic runner, vision is up there with anybody else in this class. The home run hitting ability, the elusiveness, the contact balance, the toughness in which he runs. He's a really good receiver out of the backfield, can certainly be a three-down guy. I don't know a whole lot about his pass protection, and that's really important. That's an important element that will keep you off the field if you're not where you need to be on that front. But he's been such a volume guy, for his high school team, that they haven't really asked him to do a whole lot of pass protecting, or at least I haven't seen much as far as the film that I've watched. But one of, just like I said, the most dynamic runners and one of the most impressive running backs in this 2026 cycle. And the fact that he's a year younger than everybody else, it kind of just speaks to, what he could potentially be as a player. I still think there's a lot of room for growth. So I'm excited about, the potential of Alabama landing a guy like this, a playmaker who can handle, quite a bit of volume if you need him to. I think he would fit perfectly within, Kalen DeBoer's offense. But before we get into that, Mick, kind of what's your thoughts on Alabama's running back room this year? And then, if you start looking ahead to next year, Draylen Washington's going to be a redshirt senior this year. Jam Miller's going to be a senior. So you're probably going to lose those two guys, but you also got a lot of young talent in that room as well. Let's start by talking about how you feel about this room in 2025.
I mean, I think it really starts with Jam. I mean, he's got to have a good year, maybe a great year. We saw him kind of emerge as the guy in this offense last year when the Auburn, the Iron Bowl came and they just kept giving him the ball. Justice Haynes might have been banged up a little bit, but Justice never really kind of stepped up and became the guy that we thought he would. Maybe he will at Michigan. I wasn't ready to give up on him, but he left. And then, you start looking at the Richard Youngs and the Kevin Riley's and those guys, and somebody in that spot besides Washington needs to step up. I mean, Washington's a transfer. DeBoer's done a nice job with the transfers, but you still need one of those guys to kind of slide in there and and be a factor. And I think that they will. AK Deer's still learning. They talked about that in the press conference, but he's got a ton of talent. And then so I guess from the running back room, standpoint, you talk about guys leaving, who knows who's going to transfer, but from a recruiting standpoint, Bama has to get these guys. I mean, they just have to. You need to get the top 10 in the state. You need to turn that border into a lock wall like Saban had it. So I think he's important, not just for what he's going to do on the field, but I think it's also the perception and the recruiting in the state.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Because I mean, he is one of the top, 2 or 3 players in the state for the 2026 cycle. The On3 industry rankings has him listed as a 5-star, the number 30 overall player, the number 2 running back. On3 has them listed quite a bit higher as the number 23 overall player. Now, granted, they haven't started divvying out all of their 5 stars. I think they kind of save some. But I mean, there's no doubt at some point he's probably going to be a 5-star. And so, yeah, you do need to land these types of guys. And Auburn's heavy after him. We know Florida State's a finalist, Texas, Georgia, Ohio State. But a lot of people feel like he's going to stay in the state of Alabama. So if you are Alabama, you got to make sure that you lock a guy like this down, because of not just really when you look at what Alabama's losing, as far as Jam Miller and Draylen Washington following this next season, that's an element of this. You still have some talented guys, some former top 100 recruits. A.K. Deer's a guy who I thought fit really well in Kalen DeBoer's offense. But when you look at a guy like Ezavier Crowell, he feels like the perfect Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb running back, because, I mean, of all of the attributes that he brings to the table, I don't think there's going to be anything that you would ask him to do with a very diverse run game. I mean, you see the pin and pulls, you see the power sweeps, the inside zones, the traps, the counters, just a wide variety that they throw at opposing defenses. I think there have been some limitations with the running backs who are already on the roster, this past season. I think there were limitations as far as the way that they had to use those running backs relative to the volume in which the quarterback was getting in the run game. But even still, Jam Miller is a heck of a player. He can do a lot of things extremely well. I think a lot of these Alabama running backs can. But a guy like Ezavier Crowell, just the completeness in which he plays, the dynamic presence, he can be the engine for your offense. Now, granted, in Alabama's offense, will he be asked to handle a massive workload? No, but when you talk about maximizing your efficiency with your run game, which is, I think, what Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb want to do, it's not really going to be necessarily the focal point of the offense, but it's critical to the success of the offense because the way that they use the passing game and the run game off of each other. When you've got a guy who can kind of handle everything, including handling the volume, if you choose to give him that volume, he's going to be a very efficient player. It's going to help him from the standpoint of he's going to be able to get touches. He's going to get the looks that he wants to get, probably going to have a lot of success, but he won't have to have too much tread on the tires in order to make that happen. I just think it would be a great fit and combination. And you're talking once again about that recruiting side of it and just the statement it would make. I think that would be absolutely huge. So hopefully Alabama can lock this one up. It does feel like, whatever his decision is, it's trending to come sooner rather than later. And we'll certainly be talking more about him if and when he chooses to commit to Alabama. But right now, that's definitely one to keep an eye on if you're an Alabama fan.
Do you think what are you leaning? I mean, you got the lean on this. You think Alabama gets him? I mean, Auburn's after him, Texas is after him, everybody's after him. Everybody wants this guy. Do you think Alabama's going to be able to lock him in?
I think so. Yeah. If I was an Alabama fan, I would feel good about this one. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen. Crazy things happen on the recruiting trail. But I think the fact that he's not wanting to sit around and wait for the next 7 or 8 months, I think that bodes really well, because I think right now he's definitely trending towards Alabama. Is that going to stop other programs or teams from recruiting him and trying to get him to flip even if he commits to Alabama? No. But, I think that he is a guy that wants to stay in state. This offense, what I'm hoping to see this year is, with the way that Alabama is going to want to attack defenses with the passing game, it's going to be more in the mold of what we expected to see under Kalen DeBoer and now Ryan Grubb being back in Tuscaloosa. I'm really hoping that having that element will allow you to funnel your run game more through your more traditional avenue, which is your running backs, put their skill sets on display a little bit, allow the things to play off of each other, like I said, and let it be an efficient run game that I think would be very desirable for a guy like Ezavier Crowell. So I'm excited to see not only what the offense looks like this year, But, I'm excited to see what Crowell ends up looking like in his final season in high school, because with the way he's trending right now, I mean, I think he could step into the SEC before even his junior season, and he could have made an impact. Like, that's the kind of player or talent that this kid is. I understand that the running back position has kind of lost value a little bit on the NFL side of things, but I think they're trending a little bit more back in that direction because of the way, with them playing so much too high safety looks in the NFL. The goal now is to get an established run game, run it down NFL defenses' throats, make them kind of bring more guys up into the box to where you can get some of those vertical shots and what you want in the passing game a little bit more. So I think the running back position is kind of making a comeback a little bit. But one of the things that you always want to try to avoid, Derrick Henry was a freak of nature. He can handle 300 touches, in the season at Alabama, 400 touches, 500 touches, wouldn't have mattered. He's still going to go to the NFL, and he was still going to be a workhorse. A lot of running backs, that tread on the tires, stigma, it's kind of something that they're always working against. So if you can kind of get your skill set put on display, you have a lot of success. You're nationally recognized. You're playing for a program that's really popular and doing well. I think that's the perfect combination on top of maybe not getting run into the ground. So I think it could end up being a match before it's all said and done.
I'd love to see that. I mean, I think, like I said, I think it's a big one for Alabama if they can try to figure out how to knock this down and continue the recruiting success that they had last year, just bring it to the state of Alabama. And the guy behind that is Kalen DeBoer. But before we tell you about Kalen DeBoer, guys, I want to remind you that we're brought to you by Pearl River over in Philadelphia, Mississippi. I talk about them all the time. I know you guys are planning vacations. This is a place you can go, and for a lot of us, it's not a far drive. Tuscaloosa, points west, less than an hour, depending on where you are. Some of you guys that are in Mississippi, it's even closer. Birmingham's not that far, but you get the entire Vegas experience there. They got it all. Talking about the Timeout Sports Lounge, which has Vegas-style sports book. You can gamble on really anything. You got all the big screen TVs, a huge bar. It's fun when you bring your friends, and whether you fill out the card or you go to one of the kiosks, do that. Table games and slots at Silver Star and Golden Moon Casino. The golf course is it's brilliant. It's the best in Mississippi, one of the best in the South, called Dancing Rabbit, multi-million-dollar golf course. You don't have to have a membership to play it. 18-hole courses, the Azaleas and the Oaks, and Philip M. Steakhouse, the water park, all of that stuff. Take advantage of it, and also big concerts there as well. All right, Kalen DeBoer, he's basically taken up for Jalen Milroe again. There was some rumors that, well, I mean, I guess I want to hear your interpretation. I shouldn't throw my 2 cents in there, but what was your interpretation of what DeBoer had to say about Milroe?
It's interesting because on the surface, it kind of does sound like he's defending him, which, I mean, and he would never not defend him. But just reading the quote, man, I kind of thought he was being kind of honest about it. And so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and read the quote. And so he said, I think I've heard that same quote, and I think the word all was used. So whenever absolutes are used like that, I kind of question it right there. The words never and always and all, I think that's a little far-fetched. I don't think we would have lost all of our receivers for anything. I will also say that there were guys who left. We had 6 receivers transfer out just on this last year's team already. There's reasons for that. Who you're hearing that from and what's happening, I don't know. That's not really a concern of mine. So, when you hear that, is your immediate thought that it's not true? Because kind of for me, it almost feels like he's saying, I mean, guys, we weren't going to lose everybody, but it almost was like, yeah, we were probably going to lose some guys. It's just the way that I interpreted it, but you might have interpreted it differently.
No, I mean, I guess to me, I just, the way I interpreted it is like, hey, the guy did a good job, and, who knows who was going to leave or who was going to stay, right? I mean, I guess with DeBoer, it's always kind of, he's pretty political, like he's not going to ever give anything up, right? You're never going to hear too much of anything because he's just not going to do that. He doesn't do that. But how do you feel? We've both heard rumors. Guys were going to transfer. That players were kind of tired of Milroe running the football, and then they were tired of him being in the pocket, not being able to throw. It was like it just felt like he really couldn't win either way. To me, like except going out there and winning. And up until Oklahoma, I thought that he had a great season going, and then something happened, and he fell absolutely off. And it cost him some spots in the draft, but he didn't get Shedeur Sanders. But anyway, I mean, he still got drafted. Normally, where there's smoke, there's fire. You'll say that.
That's a good way to put it. I think there's probably some truth to this. Here's the thing, though: Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, Caleb Odom, Emmanuel Henderson, Jaron Hamilton, Amari Jefferson. Kalen DeBoer said 6 of their receivers have transferred out. Really, it's every bit of 6. And does that mean that more guys would have transferred out had he stuck around? I mean, I don't know, but it's like if they transferred anyways, was he really the reason? I think last year's offense, from a receiver standpoint, it left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. I mean, and the fact that it highlighted Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard, they were the 2 that got a lot of action. Their usage was consistent. They were a massive part of the offense. Neither one of those 2 guys leave, but a lot of the guys who are behind them, despite the fact that there's reason to believe that, how things looked last year was not going to be how it looked in 2025. I also think there was a fit. I don't think Kendrick Law or Kobe Prentice necessarily fit a Kalen DeBoer style of offense. Caleb Odom was kind of that big body receiver. We talked about how they needed that element last year, but he was a young guy. But he doesn't, like Isaiah Horton, he runs and moves like a wide receiver. He's got a lot of athleticism to complement it. Rome Odunze, he was not just a big body guy. He could do pretty much everything that you would ask of that position, despite the fact that he had a lot of length and size and speed. Caleb Odom, I think, was a little bit more limited. There was a reason that he was kind of viewed more as a tweener between a wide receiver and a tight end. So I don't know that he ever would have been able to break into that type of role in Alabama's offense. Like Emmanuel Henderson he had been down the depth chart. Jaron Hamilton was down there. Amari Jefferson was one where it's like, who knows what would ended up happening with him, but he kind of feels a little Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law-esque. So I think it was a fit, for the offense. I think some of it probably came from Alabama side, but I also think that the truth that kind of lies in there a little bit is the fact that, there was some frustrations with how the offense looked last year. And while it was, probably going to change, it left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths.
Yeah, well, the Michigan game left a lot of sour in people's mouths too about that season. I mean, you could kind of forgive the Oklahoma game, but the Michigan game was just that's such a lack of attention to detail and effort at the beginning of the game, and there's just those 2 games were just not up to the standard at Alabama, And I thought it was interesting too that Tyler Booker was talking about after he was drafted by the Cowboys, just how disappointed he was in his record at Alabama and didn't win a national championship at Alabama. Did you check that out? And were you surprised at all that he was kind of that vocal about it?
No, I mean, because they went so long where if you stayed 3 years, you never didn't win a national championship at Alabama. So the fact that, guys like JMO, he comes in for a year, never wins a title, never gets that ring. But that's not overly surprising because you're a one and done. A guy like Bryce Young never wins one as the starter, but he was there for that 2020 season. So he still has a national championship ring. When you're Tyler Booker and you contribute as a freshman, then you become a starter as a sophomore and you're a 2-year starter, you end up being a top 15 draft pick. At a place like Alabama, the kind of the standard had become, I'm going to win a national championship in one of these 3 years that I'm here. And he's one of the first classes that didn't. And so, yeah, I'm sure from his legacy standpoint, the fact that he was kind of a part of a changing dynamic as far as the program. Now, granted, I think that was coming anyways. I think if Nick Saban stuck around, that was coming. I mean, you could already start to see the fall off, the NIL, the transfer portal. It was just, it's making it harder and harder to retain talent. But, at the same time, I think now it's just a matter of, hey, are you going to be one of those programs that's always in the conversation and you're winning a national championship every once in a while? It doesn't have to be every 3 years or every other year or winning 2 in a row. It's just got to be get out there and be competitive and win one. If you win one every 5 years or 6 years, granted, I'm sure Bama fans want it a lot more often than that, and I don't blame them. But I just think realistically, that's where college football is at. Kirby wins back-to-back for Georgia. They've now gone, a couple of years without winning one. You had Michigan, then you had Ohio State. Are we thinking that Georgia's trending back towards winning a national championship in 2025? I mean, it's possible, but I don't think they're viewed as one of the favorites to do it. I think, in fact, it is possible that they take another step back. So it's like, I mean, even the programs like that, are they really on track? Has Texas even got over the hump yet? No. So Michigan went from being a national championship winner to being a 7-5 football, I guess 8-5 after they beat Alabama. But, that the highs and the lows, man. And I think that's college football now. So that's the more realistic expectation.
I agree with you, especially with the NIL and the transfer portal. And it's not about where you're going, what the development looks like, what the facilities are like. It's basically who's going to pay you money. So in a way, it's leveled the playing field, but in another way, it's definitely changed college football where you can win with less. You can have less of a coach, you can have less of a facility, but you can still win. Or have a competitive team if you go out there and spend and you do it right, which was something that Saban talked about. Hey guys, yesterday I sported my black Rowback shirt, rowback.com. Love it. Take advantage of it right now. Room 20, that is 20% off your first order. So, hey, that's a way to look good for the summer. The Masters gear that they have, Bama gear, all that stuff. They're comfortable. They look good. And I think you'll like it. And you get a ton of compliments every time I wear that stuff. Somebody messes with me, asks me about it. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Room 20, take advantage of it. That's our code there. And it comes from Elephant in the Room, but we'll share it over here on Cover Crimson. So thank you guys for writing that down. And Father's Day's coming up, Mother's Day's coming up, Father's Day's coming up. So you got excuses to buy stuff, even if it's not for yourself as you move forward. The other thing, Clint, I want you to talk about this. We are putting a lot of time and emphasis into our audio podcasting, and you guys asked for it. You asked for it because you can't always pop us on YouTube, and we're putting a lot of emphasis into it, Clint.
That's 100% correct. We're available now on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, pretty much. I think wherever you get or listen to your podcast, we're available. It's not going to have the video side of it, but I'm one of those. I got YouTube Red. I watch YouTube. Even when I'm listening to podcasts, I'll pull up a YouTube video, play it through, listen to it like a podcast when I'm driving. A lot of people, but in fact, very few people are like me. A lot of people would much rather just put it on one of those. So if you like listening, some of these longer videos that we do, would highly recommend go to wherever you listen to your podcast, download Cover Crimson. The Cover Crimson Podcast Network is the actual one. There was one before that was just Cover Crimson, and then we just realized, okay, we can create one entity where we can get all the different shows under one umbrella, Elephant in the Room and everything else, Respect the Process, Bama and Bourbon, all of that stuff under the same umbrella. But that's where you'll go, and it would certainly help us out because we're trying to grow that side of things. Leave a 5-star review for us. That will help us as far as the algorithm is concerned. We're trying to make it to where that this product continues to grow, and we can make this product the best Alabama coverage that you can find anywhere. And we put a lot of effort into it. We just would greatly appreciate everybody who can. It's not going to cost you a penny. Just go over there and hit that download or follow or whatever, and be a part of the podcast side of things too.
Yeah, hook us up, guys. CoverCrimson.com. You can join now for $25 off the annual subscription, so $75 for a year. As Clint will tell you, less than a cup of coffee a day. And actually, probably now that Starbucks is out there, this is a week of coffee, the way that things are these days with coffee. But Clint, what do you got going on CoverCrimson.com?
Yeah, same stuff as I was talking about yesterday with just the transfer portal and kind of giving it a couple days as far as seeing the roster settle a little bit. If there's any more guys who are connected, some scholarship players that they plan to target, might give it a little bit more time. But for right now, probably tomorrow, I'm going to start on my depth chart projections coming out of the spring. And it is going to look quite a bit different than it did going in. So would highly recommend that to everybody, because even though some of the stuff may be repetitive, I just assume that anybody who's reading it is reading it for the first time. And I try to take you through exactly where the positions stand and how guys are trending throughout the spring and cover as much new stuff as possible. But I really try to make it as detail oriented as possible, where fans really have a feel, because at this point, the roster, at least from the Exodus side of things, it's kind of locked in. So for anybody that's worried, like we don't know who's going to be on the roster, who's not, the second portal window's closed. Now we're kind of focused on who's going to be on this roster. And so kind of going through it, if you haven't been paying attention, because a lot of that stuff, now's a great time to go and read all about who's going to be on the roster for next season and get a good feel for this team before, fall camp gets underway.
Yeah, I'm looking really forward to it. See what happens, and we'll talk a little bit of transfer portal. I mean, Bama's not going to lose anybody, but they could add some players that are in the portal right now. I'm sure they're vetting them and then looking at the roster and seeing where they're at. And, and we'll talk more Alabama on a daily basis. So like and subscribe, guys. Get in the comments section. We'll do recorded shows. We'll do live shows. We'll have Elephant in the Room that we're supposed to record later today, so you guys can get the insight on the showdown at the mullet toss between Jake Coker and me, the former national championship quarterback that was known for throwing things very far, and me, just a regular broadcaster, just a regular Joe off the street. Is there any chance that an upset could have happened at the 41st annual mullet toss at the Floribama? We'll talk about that. So make sure you check out the show. Hopefully we'll have Jimmy back on this week, but thank you guys again for hanging out with us. And don't forget, we're brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Now's a great time to get out there and hit the links or get the slots and tables. Get away from Tuscaloosa and Birmingham. It's a short trip, and you can do it right there at Pearl River Resort. Roll Tide.
To Pearl River Resort.